Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Red Dragon and the movie Idiocracy. What do these two movies have in common? Nothing. It's just these were two of the movies I watched today, and I don't have notes in them, and I don't really have that many thoughts in them either, but I kind of wanted to talk about them both anyway. So I decided, okay, I'll just put it in the same video, and then it'll be a bit longer than just having to, really short videos. I might do this every once in a while. I sometimes spend a whole day where I'll just watch a bunch of movies. So Idiocracy was the movie I watched first. I haven't really seen Luke Wilson in that many movies. I don't know if he still acts either. I mostly just see him in movies from the early 2000s, 90s, mostly for some of the Wes Anderson movies. But yeah, he's in this, so I was like, okay, cool, I get to watch another movie he's in besides stuff that's Wes Anderson movies. And it's a movie about this guy who is army librarian or something, and he doesn't really do anything with his job, and he's fine with that, and he gets chosen for this special project, secret government project, where he's going to be put in hibernation in 1 year along with this prostitute that they hire, who's also going to be a test subject. I don't remember exactly why she gets picked, but the guy gets picked because he is completely average in every way. But then their base ends up getting shut down, the military base, and the project's forgotten, and instead of being kept in stasis or whatever for a year, they're kept in there for 500 years or something crazy. So then we get to see both of the main characters, but it's mostly just the guy. I don't remember what his name is. And he wakes up in the future, and it's a future where everyone's really stupid, and he becomes the smartest man on earth because of that. Where it's explained where it's rich people weren't having, not rich people, but smart people, I guess, weren't having kids, and dumb people were having too many kids, so then everyone just kind of ended up dumb. And the whole movie, the main character is trying to get to a time machine that supposedly exists, and it's kind of funny because at the end he decides okay, I'm just gonna stay in the future, I guess, because you guys need me that bad, and whatever, I can make a change finally and do something with my life. And then it turns out the time machine he was looking for is actually just a roller coaster ride with that name. There is no time machine. He never actually had a chance to go back. And I had a feeling it was going to be something like that, of that he would end up staying there because they need him so badly. I was hoping there would be a time machine, just because then he'd be able to go back to the back to the past and try to change the future. But he is, at the end of the day, just one guy, and with the way things were going, I don't think he would have really been able to change anything. So I guess he just lives in this future, and he ends up being the president, actually. He ends up being vice president, because the president in this future or whatever is played by Terry Crews, who's pretty funny. This movie, I mean, I get with the title and everything, I should have expected it. It is very stupid. It's supposed to be. It's almost stupid where it's irritating, not because of how the plot functions, but just watching the main character interact with these people, of how everyone's kind of mean, and but it's also kind of weird watching where it's things, the things they predict of what happens in this stupidity future probably will come true, maybe. I feel the future, not to be a half glass empty person, I know I'm going to sound this way, will probably either turn out in some capacity of either the route this movie goes or WALL-E, and I'm kind of curious and scared which direction it's going to go. But it's a future where the top food chain, because brands, but especially fast food places, are in charge of everything. I think the two companies that are in charge of everything are Gatorade, some kind of Gatorade company, where Gatorade has actually just completely replaced water, because whatever the off-brand Gatorade in this movie is, the company just buys out the World Health Organization or something. And Carl's Jr., I was not expecting Carl's Jr., of all people, to be the company that ends up in charge of everything, to the point where you see a little, it's funny because it's called Carl's Jr. in the movie, but then their mascot is different, where it's a frowny star instead of a smiley one. I would have just assumed it would have been McDonald's, but I wonder if it was a rights thing or whatever. So they have stuff like that. They have this thing where it's like everyone has to get a tattoo in their hand to like to scan as like your government ID type thing or whatever. There's just a lot going on with that movie. I think I liked it more towards the end once the main character was like trying to grow like crops is like the big thing, because the world I think ran out of food or something. And you know, I don't know how everyone's still alive in this movie, by the way, where I mean, I know the Gatorade company in the movie, it's like the electrolyte thing and whatever, but the fact that no one drinks water, the characters are like, yeah, water's just for the toilets, why do you want to drink that? I'm like, how are any of you still alive? And what's kind of crazy to me is like everyone's like seems like a pretty healthy weight in this movie. There isn't really anyone that's overweight, and I was surprised by that, considering that it's people that their only access to food where there's no like crops or anything, no one's drinking water, is just like fast food companies and stuff. And I was like, okay, that seems kind of weird. What was the other thing I was gonna say? I don't remember, but the two people that end up, you know, being sent into the future, they end up, you know, bonding, and I think the main character doesn't find out that Maya Rudolph's character is like a prostitute at any point, because she mentions about this pimp that is like looking for her or something, and he at one point thinks she's like a painter, and she just goes along with it for like the rest of the movie. But then at the end of the movie, when he ends up becoming president, it's like an epilogue thing, and they have like 3 kids together and stuff. She does paint, and then she doesn't paint very well. Like, she actually decided to take up painting, which I found kind of interesting. But yeah, I do like that they end up stuck in this bad future, and they like try to make the most of it and stuff, instead of like going back to the past and trying and probably like failing to change things. And it's this whole thing where the main character spent like his whole life not really kind of doing anything. He has this motto thing from like the army of like, be a leader, be a follower, or do nothing. And then he ends up becoming a leader, you know, at the end, and in this like bad future and stuff. So that's Idiocracy. I ended up skipping a lot of it, probably like the middle mostly, just because it got like a bit too stupid for me. I thought it was going to be funnier. I was actually a little bit disappointed, but I feel like it's like a certain kind of humor, really, where it just kind of wasn't really for me. And then Red Dragon is a prequel to Silence of the Lambs. They have Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter again, and he does a great job as always. I don't remember how many years apart are from the actual like filming of the movies, because this one's from 2002. I think Silence of the Lambs is from like the 90s or something. Maybe I remember Jodie Foster being like really young in that. But yeah, this one's a prequel, but it was filmed afterwards, so like the characters are older, and like Clarice Starling isn't in this. She's only mentioned at the end, which is kind of funny, where they're like someone's talking to Hannibal Lecter, and they're like, hey, there's a woman from the FBI here to see you, and he's like, what's her name? And then it ends, and then it goes to the credits, and there's like really like dramatic music or whatever, as if this is some kind of like Marvel thing where she's gonna join or whatever, you know, but then she's gonna be the protagonist for the next movie. But yeah, part of the reason I wanted to watch this one, and it's been a bit since I've seen Silence of the Lamb, I kind of remember it, is having like Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter again, because he doesn't feel as scary as the character in Silence of the Lambs. I feel like the way he talks to Will seems like a bit more friendly than how he talks to Clarice, where he does still at least do the thing where he doesn't try to like blink on camera and stuff, and the way he like stares, but it just felt like a more intimidating vibe in Silence of the Lambs. But I mean, I guess that could be explained because they have this thing at the beginning where like before, like the reason Hannibal Lecter even ends up caught as like a cannibal and stuff is that Will, and I really like the intro, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Will Graham, he's an FBI agent. I think this takes place in like 1980 or something. He's trying to catch a cannibal, and he's like friends with Hannibal Lecter, and is going to him for like advice and telling him things without even telling like the FBI bureau or whatever. and then he figures it out, and then Hannibal Lecter stabs him, and they end up like shooting each other, both ending up like really injured or something. So then the next time they see each other, it's that Hannibal Lecter's in jail, and it kind of plays off the same as like Silence of the Lambs, of like an FBI agent goes to Hannibal Lecter and is like, hey, I'm trying to catch this guy, I'm gonna give you some clues, and can you help me like piece it together and stuff, which is still fun to watch. But the other reason I was kind of watching it is I had watched a little bit of the show Hannibal. I didn't get very far into it, where they have, you know, Will and Hannibal Lecter as like the main characters and stuff. And I was kind of enjoying it. I was mostly watching it, and it was so weird for me because the guy that made the show Pushing Daisies, which is one of my favorite shows, and it still absolutely devastates me because the stupid or it's not stupid, but I'm just kind of like, because the show didn't get finished, and kind of, it's more of like my anger of that, of like the 2008 like writer's strike or something, where the show's ending ended up getting like super rushed, and there was like so many things you didn't really get to see happen, that's kind of the thing I'm more angry about and stuff. But yeah, the shows that the guy like normally seems to make is like Pushing Daisies or like Wonderwall and stuff, where they have like a certain aesthetic, and then there's Hannibal, which is like the complete opposite vibe, where it's like a very serious like murder drama that's like kind of dark and moody. And then Pushing Daisies over here looks like it's from the universe of like the 2003 Mike Myers Cat in the Hat. But yeah, because I'd watched a little bit of Hannibal, I was like, okay, let me check out Red Dragon, which I'm glad I'd seen a little bit of Hannibal. I wasn't really familiar with the character of like Will Graham and his ability. I think in the show it's explained as like a high empathy ability. I don't remember what they call it here, where he can like picture how, like, looking at photographs of how killers like kill people and stuff and getting into their mindset or whatever. And this one does get like pretty gruesome. Like there's a part of like people's faces getting cut off and stuff, or someone trying to shoot themselves in the mouth, and thankfully you don't actually see it happen, but you see the gun in their mouth, and I was just like, oh gosh, and I kept like trying to turn away, but you only see like the after effects of it. This one, from what I remember, isn't like as gruesome as Silence of the Lambs, which is good, because that one was kind of a lot for me. But both of these are, you know, and with the subject, given the subject matter, I completely get it. I actually liked it. I think I like Silence of the Lambs more. What's funny is I wasn't even as focused on like Edward Norton, like super young Edward Norton trying to catch the killer. Which, I mean, that's what it's like weird, the opposite with like Silence of the Lambs. It's like I was so interested in watching Clarice trying to find like Buffalo Bill, and like her talking to Hannibal Lecter in jail and stuff. And then with this one, I was actually not even really focused on the stuff with Will. I was focused on the villain. I think he's played by Ralph Fiennes, who has this like giant dragon tattoo on his back, and his whole thing, I think, is like killer name, I don't know what it's called, is like the Tooth Fairy. I don't think it has anything to do with teeth though. Is he's obsessed with this one dragon painting, and he keeps killing these women that look like the woman that's in the painting. There's like a woman and there's a dragon, and then he ends up having this relationship with this blind woman, which sort of works out because he's sensitive about this. I think it's called like a cleft lip or something, where it's like the lips open and he has something like a surgery or something to get it kind of closed, but you can still sort of see it on his face. And he's like very sensitive about his face, and he's dating someone who like can't see his face, but she loves him anyway. I think she'd love him no matter like what he looked like or anything. But their relationship's actually really nice, and it doesn't end well. I was actually surprised she didn't end up dead, but it was only because he cared about her so much, and the guy has this like alter ego type thing where he like kills people and stuff. It's kind of like the Green Goblin from what I remember. But that portion of the movie I was interested in. I need to listen to the soundtrack as well, because there was some like good music in there. But that's the part I was focused on, and yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I feel like there isn't really much more. I mean, there's more things I can talk about. Like I spent a longer time watching that movie, Red Dragon, than I did Idiocracy. because I skipped through most of Idiocracy and then I went to watch Red Dragon because I wanted something like a bit more lighthearted as like my first movie of the day. Um, but yeah, you know what? I don't regret watching either of them. Thought they were both alright. I don't know if I'd watch them again. I feel like maybe I'd watch Red Dragon again if I was going the route of like, I'm making this up, like watching like Hannibal and then watching like Red Dragon or vice versa and then watch. I feel like you have to like, I don't know where to put Hannibal in there, but at least watching like Red Dragon and then watching Silence of the Lambs and stuff because you know this one's supposed to be a prequel. And apparently there's like more movies and I think they're based off books, but I'm not completely sure about that. If they are, I'm not gonna read them. I don't really care. But the movies are at least good. Like I avoided Silence of the Lambs for years because I heard it was like a horror movie and the stuff that happens in there. And I'm glad I was like warned about that when I was younger. And the reason I even ended up watching it was because like a friend had it on at her house and I was like visiting and stuff. And it was like, let's watch this movie. And I'm like, okay. And then I was like really freaked out about the movie for a while. But then I watched it again myself a couple years ago and I was okay. I mean, it's still like pretty gruesome and there's things I can't really look on the screen. But this one I was able to like handle for the most part. But yeah, it does have like photos and stuff of like people with their faces cut off around like their eyes, like masks. So I'm gonna say if you're like a bit squicky to that kind of stuff, maybe don't watch this one. But Idiocracy's fine to watch, you know. I always just kind of like to give that heads up because there's things I can get kind of squeamish about in movies. Like when I talked about Home Alone and the things that happen there where you get like stabbed through the feet and burned and other stuff, where I like to give other people the heads up, you know. Because sometimes for some of these movies I watch, I wish I had the heads up, not of things being like too scary, but just like a, hey, there's like body mutilation or whatever happening, you know. Yeah, but that's my thoughts on both of those. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna rewatch a movie next. I have some movies I want to rewatch. That maybe you'll get some videos on. I don't know. Not like I'm gonna rewatch it and like remake a video, which I'm maybe considering. I don't know. But it might just be like I'm gonna rewatch something and I'm gonna make a video on it for the first time. Probably. I have like a couple movies in mind, like the 70s Charlotte's Web movie. I found out is one of those like free with ads YouTube things, so I'm gonna probably watch that. And that one's kind of fun. I feel like I need something fun after Red Dragon, but instead I'm just gonna go and literally watch like a sad movie. I'm gonna go watch a sad German movie after I eat my dinner. Alright. Thanks for watching. Bye.